Welcome back to Bodyholic with D. We are arriving here at another power packed episode. I'm your host, D, of course, and today we're going to dive into a topic that is fundamental to achieving your fitness goals, optimizing your health, and really truly understanding your body. Macronutrients. So, we have talked about this several times throughout the history of Bodyholic with D. But today we're going to get into it a little bit differently. So, whether you're prepping to absolutely crush the upcoming Bodyholic Protein Challenge on April 28th, 2025, this is really what we're doing right now, or simply committed to leveling up your nutrition game, this is an episode that it is an absolute must listen for you. So, I'm beyond excited to introduce you to John Ybarra, an expert from Carbon Diet Coach. John isn't just incredibly knowledgeable, but he really does have a true gift for making complex nutritional science accessible and actionable. We're going to demystify macro tracking, all right? Explore the immense benefits of the Carbon Diet Coach app. And we're going to equip you with the tools to take control of your diet like never before. So think of today's episode and the importance of John really sitting with us and explaining this to us. Think of it as your roadmap to understanding why what you eat matters, not just how much. And we're going to discuss how Carbon can help you personalize your nutrition and make adjustments on the fly and achieve sustainable results without restrictive dieting. Okay, so get ready to fuel your body. Get ready to transform your approach to nutrition and tracking. And let's get right into it with John Ybarra from Carbon Diet Coach. Welcome to Bodyholic with D. No fads, just facts. I'm D, and I'm here to help you ditch the noise and build a life you love. Let's go. Oh, but wait, I'm not a doctor, so use your common sense. Now let's dive in. John Ybarra, straight from Carbon Diet Coach. I am so happy to have you on the podcast. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for the invitation. Looking forward to our chat today.
Me too. So you and I basically started chatting because I think you have an amazing app.
We do. Carbon Diet Coach is fantastic. We've got thousands and thousands of happy users that have utilized the app in support of their performance, body composition goals, lifestyle goals, and we're here to help however we can.
Amazing. So yes, please tell me a little bit about Carbon, and so people understand why I keep urging them to
Sure.
download it, and maybe even a little bit of backstory.
Yeah, so Carbon Diet Coach is the brainchild of Dr. Lane Norton and another one of our founders, registered dietitian Keith Crocker. They essentially recognized that they wanted to make an impact in the macronutrient coaching space, but their ability to work with clients isn't necessarily scalable. And so they wanted to have a way to meet the user where they are financially, consistency wise, because it's a mobile app. And they said, okay, let's take our knowledge of working with thousands and thousands of individuals, and let's try to package this into a smart coaching app. And they have done so with the Carbon Diet Coach app. So we're pushing 5+ years of being in the fitness wellness space, and have, like I mentioned earlier, have seen tens of thousands of users meet their goals. We're talking 2+ million pounds lost, millions of goals reached. It's been a fantastic journey for the company, and I think that our best times are really ahead as we continue to evolve. But the reality is that we're here to help people meet their body composition goals, their performance goals, and really meet them where they are through the power of flexible dieting, through macronutrient tracking, through some of that positive behavior change. When I say that the app is a smart coaching app, it is exactly that. Users will track their foods in app. They will weigh themselves regularly. We typically ask to weigh daily, but a few times a week at least. And then through some advanced algorithms, the app will review your progress towards your goal. And then as you check in weekly, the app will take that progress, assess it based on the foods that you've tracked, and then make an appropriate adjustment. Very similar to what a coach would. So while it might cost a few $100s or upward to work
Hmm.
directly with a macronutrient coach one-on-one, the app is $10 a month and
Right.
does effectively very much the same thing.
Hmm.
Added bonus, users have the ability to reach out to our excellent support team at any time. So we have a live support team that they can reach in app. And so if they've got a specific question, they are looking for strategic advice, they may want to you learn how the app functions a little bit deeper, they can reach out to our support team. So we really, like I mentioned earlier, we really are trying to help the user meet their goals and meet them where they are.
Um, it's super admirable. It's really amazing what you guys do. There are a few things that you mentioned that I just want to clarify. So, flexible dieting might be a
Yeah.
term that not everybody is familiar with. So, if you can just expand a little bit on that.
We do our best to not label foods good versus bad. And that's intentional. I think there are many strategic diet opportunities someone might have to limit a macronutrient, well, carbohydrates, fats. For example, say, okay, I'm not going to eat carbs. That's typically one that we see regularly, which can be good from some perspective that you can lose weight, but that might not be a sustainable approach to weight loss. So what flexible dieting does is essentially says, here's a protein target that we know we need to support your goal, whether that be weight loss, whether that be muscle building, whether that be weight maintenance. And after that protein target, those calories have been allotted for, you can use the rest of the calories that you have for your day to the breakdown of the carbohydrates and fats that you deem the most enjoyable, the most sustainable for you.
Mhm.
And so that means that you can have some of those foods that you might see others say you shouldn't have XYZ food. There really aren't off limit foods. There might just not be foods that help you in your goal in that specific time frame. And so flexible dining really says you can keep continuing to eat the foods that you enjoy in the context of where you are in your goal, and then sustain that progress and as best as you possibly can with the capacity that you've got that flexibility built in.
Hmm. Um, I feel like a lot of people on Bodyholic will deeply appreciate that. So thank you for expanding.
Of
Um,
course.
in general, and this is you've already mentioned it, but people find macro tracking, macros in general. I'm just going to quickly throw out there. So it's protein, carbs, and fat.
Mhm.
They find that pretty overwhelming.
Yeah,
Yeah, and so in general, maybe we can even talk about maybe mindset or specifically something in
sure.
carbon. But how can we simplify this to make it sustainable? Because anybody who comes into Bodyholic or comes into carbon, I want them to feel the exact opposite of one of those diet fads that
Yeah,
I see everywhere, always popping up. It's always something different. I've been around this industry for 20 years. There are so many diets constantly.
100%.
Right.
What's old is new again, and you see them cycle through. And
Exactly. So I want to talk about what we can do to make this simplified and sustainable.
sure, absolutely. And I think one strategy that it pops out regularly is that often, if an individual is starting a process to see, positive body composition change, they are likely successful in other areas of their life where structure is needed and they do very well with. And so I like to say that can you look back into what else you're doing in your life and
Mhm.
apply some of that structure to this tracking piece? And if you can take an honest look, yeah, I'm very good at I meet my deadlines at work. I make sure the house is in order. I make sure if I've got kids, my kids are at all their places where they need to be. You have the requisite skills. It's really, are you willing and giving yourself enough grace to invest what it took to get those skills, the level that they're at, the expert level, and apply them to this one thing, which is your nutrition. Because nutrition is similar to a budget. You're likely budgeting your finances.
Hmm.
It's not very different from that regard, except for we have the emotional side of food. Food can be a comfort thing, food can be a celebratory thing, and that can sometimes blur the overarching goal. And that's okay. That's where the grace piece comes in. And you give yourself grace, knowing that you might be a novice at this, but an expert in other parts of your life, and that it took some time to become that expert. And this is just, we're going to stepwise get you to that space. And so, one of the big things in carbon is that we consider target compliance. So, like if you're meeting your goals in app, as first meeting your protein and then meeting your overall calories.
Mm.
So, protein first, we'll give you an initial protein target. Let's look at how can I structure my day and week around meeting my protein targets. A lot of that is environment. Do I have the things that I need from the grocery store? Do I have some meal prep items? Do I have containers that I can regularly use? Do I have some semblance of a strategy for at least a couple of days? And then can I build on that strategy regularly? And I think once you meet the protein piece, then it's like, okay, what can I do to meet my overall calories? Now we've introduced the flexible dieting piece.
Hmm.
So protein, oh, I got that. I've got X amount of calories left over. How can I build in the rest of that into my day? One key strategy that I like to say as well, I like to share is that finding some protein targets or protein foods that you really enjoy, having those on hand, and then building the rest of your meals out from the carbohydrates that you and fats that you might utilize. And so what I mean by that is, if you've got a plant-based protein you really like, and you've got a couple different maybe animal-based proteins you like, can you have some of them stocked in your fridge? Can you have them ready to be prepared that are somewhat quick to prepare? And then can you also prepare things like rice or other carbohydrate sources, bread even, veggies, you've got those. Fruits are a great example of carbohydrate that can support. And then any added fats can just be made in dressings, etc. And so, and then mixing and matching those. If you can boil down to a few things that you enjoy, then you can sprinkle in the seasoning, then you can sprinkle in the dressing and sauces, and then you've got multiple different types of meals to support your targets. Now that takes some time to get there, which is why we have a support team, which is why we have some resources in app from a help center perspective, from our social channels. This is another great example as a resource for your listeners, hearing me speak, hearing others speak about how you can build some of those behaviors in. But I think circling back to my initial point, anyone that's listening has a desire to see change and is
Hmm.
very likely successful in other areas of their life. It's just, hey, shining a light that yes, I can do this. Yes, I've proven I can do this in other arenas in life. And I just need to apply a few strategies to get there.
Yes. I also love the emphasis on the protein you enjoy,
Mhm.
because otherwise it really isn't sustainable. Um, so let's talk about the help center for a moment, because I think
Sure.
that is I don't think that that really shows up in other apps. The
Yeah.
competition is, super large out there. Everybody
Mhm.
knows MyFitnessPal,
Yeah.
um, but the support I don't think there's anything quite like Carbon in terms of that.
You are correct. We like to say it's one of our market differentiators is that you have a live support team. Other apps are going to have things like communities. We have a Facebook community. We have our social channels. But I think that there is that need. We talked about the emotional piece
Hmm.
of food. I think that body composition change and habit change in this realm is also needing some human support. And so we have decided to always offer that as an option for the users. And so in app, there's a way that you can message a live person, a person on a support team, and ask your questions. You'll posit
Hmm.
a question. We've got some resources in our web help center too, where there's articles. We're constantly updating the help center articles based on what we hear from our users, what we're seeing in the media or social media that's valuable. Like there's a lot of questions about XYZ. We'll include that in our help center. We've got blog posts and everything that we're trying to provide to users. But
Mhm.
what it boils down to is in the moment, I might have a question that I really want to ask, and I don't know how to ask it. I can ask it to the support team and get a response.
Get a
Usually
human
within a couple
response.
hours. If not immediately, usually within a few hours, someone's going to reach back out. Depending, we're an international company, so we've got people all over the world, and so. But we will review your information. Say you check in and you're like, "Why did the app act this way?" It's a pretty regular question. We'll look through. Oh, this is where the last 3 weeks have been for you, and then where's follow-up questions? What has changed in your life that has seen this? Has there been a stress increase over the last couple of weeks? Not uncommon for someone to go, I'm not making the progress that I was making 2 weeks ago. Well, what has changed in life? Yeah, work's been a little bit hard. Okay, let's pivot. Are there strategies? Here are some strategies around stress reduction that might help you.
Hmm.
Or, oh, has your movement changed significantly? Oh, okay. And then the user can respond and we can come together and determine what the best next step is to either get them back towards that goal or have a frank conversation on, okay, maybe this isn't the greatest time in the life for that aggressive of a goal, but you can still make
Mm.
progress. Let's make a shift and let's look at it that way. Or maybe it's time to go to maintenance for a little bit because you've been in a diet phase for a significant period of time and you might not be there quite yet. Let's let some of the diet fatigue leave and then we'll revisit again. And so I think it's very valuable for the end user to see that, and the over all value for something that is less than $10 a month, I would say
Mhm.
is very great for the user to have that option.
Absolutely. I love that. I also love the approach. I love the checking in, maybe this isn't the right time to be so aggressive. Beautiful. Um, so one of the things that is really amazing about the help center and also just in general the database is the fact that there are a lot of people also especially on Bodyholic. I have to say it's a very global, very
Yeah.
international community, so people are traveling a lot and eating out a lot.
Mhm.
So maybe we can just say a word or two about eating out.
Sure.
And yeah, that would be amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. So strategies for making sure that you're staying somewhat on plan for your meals out. So one big feature in the Carbon app is the Calorie Planner. So what that does is essentially we're giving you a weekly budget of calories. You have a daily protein target, and then you can adjust your weekly overall calories based on your week. So say if you know you're going to have a special event on a Friday, or if you're going to be traveling a little bit over the next couple of days, you can provide yourself with additional calories that you're pulling from other days of the week so that you have a little bit more bandwidth on those days, because you know that meals out are going to often have preparation methods that are going to add a little bit of oil here and there, and they're going to
Right.
add some carbohydrates that are going to be a little bit more than you might eat at home. And so the calorie planner is a natural first step. Now, if you're going to be traveling somewhat significantly and spending like a week or something, then looking at some strategies around how do I best estimate the foods that are on my plate. So if you're in the moment and you want to enjoy the moment, you can. It's now common, take a picture of food, take a picture of food, and then look to piece it back together later on. We have many individuals that we've suggested that haven't had that light bulb moment of, oh yeah, I can just take a picture of my food, or I could take a note of what I had at the
Hmm.
meal and then place it later. Um, and then next would be
I
to
just want to
either.
say, sorry, I have to stop and say, you're taking a picture of it anyway and posting it on your Instagram. So,
Yeah, I don't want to go say that, but often people are doing that, so it's like
right,
it's not
right,
uncommon for that to be the
right.
case. And so, um, or what you can do is piece it together food by food. And so, oftentimes there are like meals in the app where you can say, "Oh, I had, you know, one specific type of dish." The app has tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of verified food items. So you can get pretty close from an estimating standpoint, or you can piece it together based on the meal. So if you're going to have chicken breasts with some pasta and rolls and a salad, you can piece those together.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, what might be helpful too is if you think that you are on a plan and you're doing very well and you're hesitant to overeat at your meal, is consider pre-planning for your meal, which is if you know where you're going from a restaurant perspective, most restaurants have menu items, or at least an idea of what's on the menu ahead of time. Look it up, spend a couple minutes, put it in there in advance. You can kind of see roughly where you're going to land for that day,
Mm-hmm.
based on those meals, and then say, okay, maybe I do want to have that dessert that's the best in the world at that restaurant. And I want to save some of my calories for that meal. So I might adjust earlier in my day to really just focus on protein so that I can have some of those calories for it later. And I think the other piece too is the grace piece. Understanding that if you are going to have an experience, that is okay. 1 week is not going to set back the hard work that you spent getting up to that point. As long as you're providing yourself the understanding that I'm going to enjoy this meal. This is something that I'm not going to be able to experience ever again, perhaps. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to move on from it and say, okay, this was a week. This was a couple days where I was really just engaged in the people and the event that I was at, and I'm going to move forward, and that's okay. It's like I said, if we're gonna compare it to budgeting, I splurged on that, and I'm going to pay for it a little bit later by being a little bit more, you know, cognizant of how my spending habits are. But
Yes.
that purchase was worth it.
Yes. Yes. Now, if we're talking, well, we want to optimize the macro ratios. And like you said, the first thing we do is, well, in carbon, it prioritizes the protein.
Mhm.
So if we want to get more nuanced, um, so if we want to optimize a little further, what are your thoughts about, um, I guess, bodybuilding
Sure.
versus, just making a lifestyle change versus different kinds of goals like that?
Sure. That's a great question. I think that identifying if you have got performance goals, what those performance goals are, and then work your way back from there. So protein will always be a priority. We'll determine protein targets based on body composition, so lean body mass. And then with your leftover calories, identify what what substrates do you need? What food items do you need to support that movement? So, for example, if I'm going to be, if bodybuilding is a priority for me, I probably am going to want to have a balanced approach. I may want a little bit more carbohydrates and a little bit less fats because I know that I want those carbohydrates to help fuel my muscle glycogen in and around training. And so I might go to the diet preferences setting and pull down my fats from balance a little bit and give myself a few more carbs. And then when I'm preparing my meals for the day or identifying my meals for the day, I'm going to make sure I have some carbohydrates prior to training so that I have the muscle glycogen kind of filled up so that I can train. That's going
Mm-hmm.
to apply to endurance training as well. I want to make sure I have enough muscle glycogen, I have enough fluid, or excuse me, enough substrate and fluids to support my event. And then um, I think monitoring how you perform is also a good
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
aspect. And so it's not uncommon for an endurance athlete to say, I really need XYZ, X amount of carbohydrates in and around training, but I'm not necessarily seeing the progress, or I think that I need this amount. And then they go and they're not really tracking their performance or not cross-referencing how they performed after they had all this type of substrate, or they are underperforming because they don't have enough. I
Mm-hmm.
think just being realistic, taking note of how you're feeling, using some of that in-gym data or on-road data and saying, okay, I do need to have XYZ more. Another great aspect of carbon is that the check-in process does review tracked amounts of calories. And so if you are ramping up for an endurance athlete, for example, your mileage is going up a little bit higher from week to week, and you are looking to have a little bit more nutritional support, you can eat a little bit beyond your given targets, and then the app will evaluate your progress and make your appropriate adjustments. So, say I'm in a maintain weight goal because performance is my priority during this block of training, and my mileage is going to go up from 50 to 60 miles over the
Mm-hmm.
next 3 weeks, and I'm going to stepwise add additional carbohydrates to my meals. the app's going to see how you're progressing and make an adjustment. So you don't necessarily have to wait to see your weight drop out of the range. You can keep it
Hmm.
in the range, eat a little bit more, and the app will recognize it's supporting your goal and will keep you there.
That's beautiful. Um, I have to ask, what are your thoughts on intuitive eating?
I think there's a space for it, particularly if uh, you've gotten to the point where you really understand yourself. I think at face value, it sounds great, but if you have goals that are left unmet, then something more structured is to your benefit. I think that there are periods where intuitive eating can do very well. Like if I'm going to go on vacation, for example, I'm likely not. If I'm not going to track everything, I do know that intuitively, if I focus on protein, I focus on fruit, I focus on greens, I'm probably going to be okay.
Right.
But if I'm intuitively eating everything that's in sight because I'm trying to enjoy myself, then that probably isn't supporting my overall goals. I think that there's a time and place for it, but I also think that it needs to be referenced upon your goals. And if you really do have a significant weight to lose, for example, or if you've got significant performance goals,
Hmm.
then you want to kind of lock in and say, I do need to understand what I'm taking in, what its impact is, and am I on the path towards making progress? I think that um, like I said, I think there's a time and place for it, but it has to be within the context of where your goals lie.
Totally. Um, I really agree. It's a big issue. A lot of the people who surround me, a lot of the people on Bodyholic, the idea of tracking versus intuitive eating, um, it's a big deal because there's also the issue of disordered eating. So people
Hmm.
coming from disordered eating can feel like this is triggered. And the way you describe it, I have to say, John, you describe it in such a way that it kind of takes it out of, it's just like budgeting. It's all good. It's
Hmm.
okay.
And I think
But
it takes time to get to that point because, like I mentioned earlier, food is emotional because it elicits feelings
mhm,
based on our past experiences, based on those we've surrounded ourselves with, based um, on how we physically feel after consumption, because there is that I mean that happens, right? The body takes it and does things with the food that you take in that can
yep,
positively and negatively impact how you feel.
totally.
And so it's hard to dissociate yourself from that. But again, it's just a learned skill that you've likely learned in other areas of your life. If you're going to compare it to like a career, there's been likely been times you've been working with a coworker you didn't agree with, but you figure out how to make it work. That's or
Nice.
you've gotten feedback from a supervisor that you didn't necessarily enjoy, but that didn't really
Mm.
keep you from continuing on your career because you have that self-value. I think that you have success in other areas and you can apply them, and it just takes time and grace.
I just, protein intake is such a personal challenge for me, actually.
Mhm.
I'm, I could live on salads and yogurt. I really could.
Yeah,
And and that's not enough protein. It's not enough overall in general. So the the importance as I get older of my
yeah,
protein intake is it's kind of in my face right now. And
sure.
certainly in terms of performance, like
Yeah,
if I can't kill my, functional training session, or if I'm going to feel bad a little bit later, it
yeah.
probably has to do with the way I've been eating. And so I do encourage people to really understand what they're taking in. In terms of, speaking of performance, in terms of BCAAs and
Sure.
protein powder and supplements and creatine, what are your thoughts on that and how does it correspond with carbon?
BCAAs have been a thing in the past. At one point there was research that supported their use. Recently, it's been a little bit more spotty about their value from the standpoint that they are not necessarily providing the same optimal restructuring of muscle protein compared to whole protein sources. That being said, protein powders, like a vegan blend of, say, pea and rice protein or a whey protein isolate or a casein protein. Those are complete proteins that are going to support uh, muscle and overall body system turnover, nitrogen turnover, essentially. I think one thing that's important is, yes, protein is going to provide that support for the muscle in terms of rebuilding, but it also has many other functions in the body, and so it's valuable all over skin, hair, nails. Uh,
Right on.
Lining on in the inside, right? Like there's things that it really is important for. Um, and so if you have to supplement to meet protein targets that are might be a little bit higher, it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just that might be the requirement initially as you get more comfortable with eating higher protein targets. The nice thing is that protein has a pretty wide range. Now, granted, as you age, your ability to have the anabolic response or the turnover response from protein degrades a little bit. That's what recent studies are showing us. However, um, there are so many, because it's in your face, there are seemingly more and more um, places that are supporting that. So, like, it's not uncommon now where you can go to a restaurant where they're going to show higher protein food
Mm,
items for you versus in the past that might not have been the case. And so I think it's very valuable. You mentioned, that it's going to support your training, it's going to support your recovery, and it boils down to identifying ones that you enjoy, understanding the value and the importance, and then if you don't enjoy it, find ways to enjoy it. Is there a way that I can front load some protein somehow? Like yogurt's a great example. Yogurt with a protein blend that you enjoy, or even a vanilla that matches, and that with some
hmm.
fruit is a great way to get 30 or 40 grams of protein in the morning to start your day
Totally.
off. So if you got a 120 gram protein target and you knock out a third of it at breakfast, when that's a quick thing. Like if you've got a busy day, you can pack your, yogurt the day before. It's all ready to go. You can eat it while you're getting ready for work, and then off you go. And then you can look to meet the
Yes.
rest of them throughout the day. So
Yes, yes, yes.
in terms of
Exactly.
creatine was another good example. You
Yeah.
asked about creatine.
Hmm.
I didn't want to miss that one. Creatine is the longest and widest studied supplement that we know, and so it is valuable from direct energy source. So helping you in terms of short term energy, training in the gym, athletic performance, etc. As we study it further and further, it appears that there are some benefits from a neurological standpoint, brain health,
Yes.
from a recovery standpoint. And so, yes, there's water that comes in, but that's not a bad thing. It's just intracellular water. And so it's really just saying, oh, I want your muscles are um, sit in water, and so they really enjoy it. And so it's really a benefit. So if you do take creatine, you see the scale bump up a little bit. Just say like I'm feeding the muscle that supports moving my body around, and then later on the fat that will come off and account for whatever I've gained from creatine. But creatine seems to be a really benefit. We at Carbon recommend utilizing it for anyone that's asked us. We've got an article on our help center that says it's performance based, but as research continues to come out, it really is a benefit, and it's one of the least expensive products that you can buy.
Mm.
Creatine monohydrate, the plain form, is relatively inexpensive, regardless of where you are in the world. So,
I am privileged to have a jar of gummies and a jar
oh yeah,
of just regular pills sent over to me. And next week, I'm going to start taking because I want to monitor and,
yeah,
everything I do is a case study.
yeah,
So,
absolutely. N equals one. Same here.
right. So I want to start on Monday with the pills. The gummies don't resonate with me, but I have them here. And the reason I actually am so inclined to start taking it, and I really wasn't uh, just a little while ago, but it's the cognitive health
Yeah,
studies that just kind of pushed me over the edge. So, yes, thank you for saying that.
of
Uh,
course.
the any common mistakes that you want to talk about, maybe regarding um, tracking, or people who are starting to track, uh, that you want to kind of forewarn?
The perfectionist behavior. I think that thinking it all has to be perfect when you start is one thing that really trips individuals up. You're not going to be perfect, especially if this is new to you. And I keep harping on the grace thing. You have to give yourself grace that it's going to take some time to build in that habit, and it's okay if you're not perfect, if you don't meet a protein target for a day, or if you go over, or if you eat under, or you didn't meal prep and so you had to make a choice on the run. Like, it's just going to take some time to find your groove, and that's okay. As long as you continue trying, you will get to a space where you get into a good groove and it becomes almost second nature. I'll keep going back to the places you're successful elsewhere in life. If you
Hmm.
look back as for parenting, for example, you likely weren't good with kid number one, but by kid three, you probably figured it out. And so
Oh
you
my
get there.
gosh. I'm laughing because just before I left home to come over here, my 6-year-old was telling me how upset she was that I was telling my 16-month-old bravo for climbing up on something. She was like, and she said, I can climb up on that. And I was like, and she was like, how come you don't say bravo to me? We went off on a whole conversation about that.
I have a 6-year-old as well, and you have to constantly showing the right way to do something by a
The
6-year-old's awesome.
6-year-olds are teenagers, apparently.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, just
100%.
making sure I'm not
You're not alone.
alone. Some people from Bodyholic were able to join. I am always at fault for not giving enough heads up.
Sure.
But I think we do have some people on.
Yeah.
We're going to stay muted, but if there are any questions that anybody has, this is gold right here. We've got John on the call, and please feel free to write any question. And if there aren't, I will make sure that everybody has the link. All right, I think we're good. I think we really
Okay.
did cover just so much territory, and you were so gracious and generous with the information and your time. So thank you.
Thank you for the great questions. I hope your audience enjoys it. And if you have any additional questions, um, feel free to let me know. I'm happy to help however I can.
I'm getting thank yous over here. So
Awesome.
and I totally agree. So yes, and that's the bottom line is when you're on carbon, they are available. So the
We are.
questions can come later.
Yeah.
All right, John, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay,
See ya.
bye-bye.
Hey, thanks so much for tuning in. And if this hit home, please share it with your crew. Likes, comments, shares, show your loved ones you care.
A Bodyholic production.